Hello, dear friends, and welcome back to our channel. Trust, as we know, isn't always broken loudly. Sometimes it erodes quietly until one moment shatters everything. Today's story explores that fragile line, the devastating impact of betrayal, and the difficult path toward healing and self-discovery. Settle in and let's begin. Trust isn't broken in a single moment. It crumbles slowly, quietly, while you're too in love to notice. Amelia Hayes's fingers hovered over her husband's laptop keyboard, her heart racing as she stared at the blank password field. The warm September breeze drifted through the open windows of their Seattle townhouse, carrying with it the bitter irony of her situation. After 8 years of marriage, she never imagined she'd be here, trying to guess David's password just to send an urgent email to her department head while her own laptop lay broken on the office floor. "Come on, Amelia," she whispered to herself, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. The password prompt blinked, expectant and unforgiving. Then she remembered David's mother's maiden name and his birth year. He had always been sentimental about family. The screen unlocked. Relief flooded her as she opened the browser to access her university email, but a notification popped up from David's messaging app. Normally, Amelia would have ignored it. She respected his privacy. But something caught her eye. A message preview from someone named Chloe. "Missing you already. Last night." The world tilted. With trembling fingers, Amelia clicked the message. The full conversation history loaded, stretching back years. Pictures, late-night chats, secret meetings, plans for weekend getaways disguised as business trips. The most recent message was from just that morning, only hours after David had kissed her goodbye and said he loved her. The room spun. Amelia gripped the edge of the desk, her knuckles white. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of trust, 8 years of building a life together. And all the while, David had been weaving a careful web of lies with a woman 12 years his junior. Her phone buzzed. A text from David. "Hope you're having a good day, sweetheart. Can't wait for our anniversary dinner tonight." Their anniversary. The realization hit like a punch to the gut. Amelia scrolled further through the thread. A message from 3 weeks ago stood out. "Already booked the cabin for next month. We'll celebrate our own special day while she thinks I'm at the Chicago conference." Bile rose in her throat. Amelia rushed to the bathroom, barely making it in time before vomiting into the toilet. Cold tile pressed against her knees as memories flooded in. Late nights at the office, the mysterious trips, David's increasing protectiveness over his phone. The signs had been there. She had just trusted him. After rinsing her face, Amelia stared into the mirror. The woman looking back was pale, shaken, with eyes that had aged in minutes. At 33, she thought she'd had it all figured out. A solid academic career, a beautiful home, and what she believed was a rock-solid marriage. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was Olivia Chen, her best friend since college. "Lunch today? I'm in your area," the message read. Amelia Hayes's hands trembled as she typed her reply. "Rain check. Something's come up." She couldn't face anyone right now, not even Olivia. She needed time to think, to plan. Returning to David's study, Amelia began taking screenshots of the messages, emailing them to herself. She worked with methodical focus, detaching from the emotional chaos swirling inside her. Years of academic research had taught her to be thorough, to document everything. She wouldn't let David gaslight her. She wouldn't let him deny what she now knew. As she sifted through the threads, more painful truths emerged. Chloe wasn't just any assistant. David had hired her 3 years ago, brought her to their home for dinner parties, let her smile at Amelia across the table and accept her hospitality, all while sleeping with her husband. The betrayal went deeper than physical intimacy. There were messages filled with dreams, fears, and secrets. David had shared parts of himself with Chloe that he had stopped sharing with Amelia long ago. In one message, he wrote, "You understand me in ways she never could." Amelia closed the laptop. A surreal calm settled over her, the kind that comes when the ground beneath you shifts so violently nothing feels real anymore. She moved through the house like a shadow, pulling her largest suitcase from the hall closet. Her bedroom, suddenly felt foreign. Had Chloe ever been here? She packed deliberately. Clothes, important documents, photos of her family, her mother's jewelry. She left her wedding ring on the dresser beside the anniversary card she'd spent an hour picking out the week before, carefully choosing words she thought would honor a love she believed would last forever. The sound of her suitcase wheels echoed across the hardwood floors. In the kitchen, she set her house keys on the granite counter beside the coffee maker, the same spot David had stood that morning pouring her coffee. Had he been thinking of Chloe then, planning their next rendezvous? Her phone buzzed one last time. Made reservations at Bella Luna for 7. Wear that blue dress I love. Amelia stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Then she blocked his number, picked up her suitcase, and walked out the front door. The September sun was still shining, the street humming with the usual rhythm of their upscale Seattle neighborhood. Nothing had changed, and yet everything had. She got into her car, started the engine, and pulled away. In the rearview mirror, their townhouse grew smaller until it disappeared entirely. She didn't know where she was going, but she knew she couldn't stay. The life she had built with David had been a beautiful illusion, and like all illusions, it shattered the moment she looked too closely. At the first red light, Amelia finally let herself cry. The tears came silently, washing away the shock, leaving behind something raw and unfamiliar, a blend of grief and determination. She thought of all the students she'd counseled over the years, young women navigating crises of their own. She'd always told them that endings were just beginnings in disguise. Now it was time to take her own advice. The light turned green. Amelia Hayes wiped her eyes, pulled out her phone, and dialed Olivia's number. Her friend picked up on the first ring. "Hey, about that lunch," Amelia said, her voice steady despite the tears still running down her cheeks. "I could really use it right now. And maybe your spare bedroom for a few days." "Amelia? What's wrong? Where are you?" "I'll explain everything. But first, I need you to promise me something. Anything. Promise me you won't let me go back. No matter what David says, no matter what I say in a weak moment, promise me you'll remind me that I deserve better than this." There was a pause. Then Olivia's voice came through, strong and certain. "I promise. Now tell me where you are. I'm coming to get you." Amelia pulled into a coffee shop parking lot, the same one where she and David had their first date 9 years ago. It felt fitting that this would be the place she'd begin her new life. She gave Olivia the address and leaned back in her seat, watching strangers move in and out of the cafe, each with their own story, their own heartbreaks and triumphs. Today, her story was changing. Today, she was choosing herself. In a few hours, David would return home to an empty townhouse. He'd find her ring, her keys, and the unspoken end of their marriage. He'd try to call, to explain, to beg. But Amelia wouldn't be there to listen. She would be with Olivia, planning her next steps, beginning the long process of rebuilding her life from the ground up. The idea should have scared her. Instead, under the weight of pain and betrayal, something unexpected stirred in her chest. Hope. Not hope for reconciliation or for David to change, but hope for herself, for the woman she could become now that the illusion was shattered. Her phone lit up with a text from Olivia. "On my way. Hang in there, warrior." Amelia smiled through her tears. Maybe that's what she was now, a warrior. Not one who fought with weapons, but one who fought for herself, for her dignity, for her future. A warrior who walked away from a battlefield disguised as a perfect life, choosing the uncertain road of self-discovery over the familiar lie of a broken marriage. The afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the pavement. In a few hours it would set, and with it, the life Amelia had once known. But tomorrow, the sun would rise again, and she would rise with it. Stronger, wiser, and finally truly free. Olivia's spare bedroom felt like a life raft in a storm. 2 weeks had passed since Amelia left the townhouse. 2 weeks of dodging David's increasingly desperate attempts to reach her. He had tried everything, calls from unknown numbers, relentless emails, even showing up at her university office. The department secretary, more perceptive than she let on, had become an expert at turning him away. Morning light filtered through the unfamiliar curtains as Amelia sat cross-legged on the borrowed bed, staring at her laptop screen. Dozens of missed calls and unread emails from David cluttered her phone, but one message stood out, an offer for a teaching position at Berkeley. She'd applied months ago, never really thinking she'd consider moving across the country. Now, the thought of putting 3,000 miles between herself and Seattle felt like a gift. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. Olivia stood in the doorway, 2 steaming mugs in hand. "You're up early," she said, crossing the room to sit beside Amelia. "More divorce paperwork?" Amelia accepted the coffee gratefully. "Actually, no. Remember that position I applied for at Berkeley? They want me to fly out for an interview next week." Olivia's eyes widened. "California? That's actually perfect timing." Amelia hesitated before responding. "Yeah, especially after this morning." Olivia raised an eyebrow. "I got a rejection email from one of the other schools I applied to, the one back east." Olivia frowned. "Oh no. I'm sorry. It's okay. I didn't even realize how much I was still hoping for that one," Amelia admitted. "It just reminded me that this road I'm choosing isn't going to be easy. Not every door is going to open." She stared down at her coffee. "But maybe that's the point. I'm not looking for easy anymore. I'm looking for right." Olivia paused, studying Amelia's face. "Are you thinking about taking it?" "I'm thinking about a lot of things." Amelia took a sip, letting the warmth spread through her chest. "Yesterday, I was reviewing my intro to psychology lecture notes and something clicked. All these years, I've been teaching students about human behavior, about resilience and growth through trauma. Maybe it's time I started applying those theories to myself." "What do you mean?" "I've been looking into counseling programs, specialized certifications in trauma and personal development. If I'm going to start over, why not really start over?" Olivia's face broke into a wide smile. "Now, that sounds like the Amelia I know. The one who graduated top of our class while working 2 jobs. Not the one who spent 8 years dimming her light for David Carter." The name stung, but Amelia knew Olivia was right. She'd poured everything into being the perfect wife, the steady partner, and somewhere along the way she'd lost track of herself. David's betrayal had broken her world, but maybe it had needed breaking. "I have a meeting with Dean Miller this afternoon," Amelia said, closing her laptop. "I'm going to resign." "Are you sure? You love teaching." "I do, but right now every classroom, every hallway at that university is filled with memories of David. And if I'm serious about this new direction, I need to commit completely." The rest of the morning passed in a blur of preparation. Amelia chose her outfit carefully, a navy blue blazer and a pencil skirt that made her feel like she was walking into battle. As she applied her makeup, she studied her reflection. The dark circles under her eyes had begun to fade, replaced by something else. Determination, perhaps, or the first glimpses of hope. The university campus buzzed with early autumn energy. Students rushed between buildings, their backpacks heavy with textbooks and ambition. Amelia Hayes remembered being like them once, so sure that life would unfold exactly as planned. Now she knew better. Dean Miller's office felt smaller than she remembered. The elderly administrator listened patiently as Amelia explained her decision, his weathered face betraying no surprise. "I had a feeling this was coming," he said, finally adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "David Carter's daily appearances haven't gone unnoticed. Are you sure this is what you want?" "It's what I need," Amelia replied, her voice steady. "I've already applied to several counseling programs. I think helping others through their own transformations might be my true calling." The dean nodded thoughtfully. "You've always had a gift for connecting with students in crisis. Maybe this is where the gift was leading you all along." He pulled a letter from his desk drawer. "I took the liberty of preparing a letter of recommendation. Whatever path you choose, you have my full support." Tears pricked at Amelia's eyes, but she held them back. "Thank you, sir, for everything." Leaving the office, Amelia felt lighter, like she'd just set down a weight she hadn't even realized she was carrying. Her phone buzzed. Another call from David. This time, instead of ignoring it, she answered. "Amelia, thank God. Please, just let me explain." "There's nothing to explain, David." Her voice came out calm, more than she expected. "I'm not calling to reconcile. I'm calling to let you know I've retained a lawyer. You'll be receiving divorce papers by the end of the week." Silence stretched between them, heavy with everything left unsaid. Finally, David's voice broke. "I never meant to hurt you, Amelia. It just happened." "No, David, it didn't just happen. You made choices, hundreds of them, every day for years. You chose to hire her, to pursue her, to lie to me. Those weren't accidents. They were decisions. I'll end it with her. I'll do anything." "I've already ended it," she cut in. "Our marriage. I'm moving to California." Another pause. Longer this time. "California? Amelia, please. We can fix this." We can go to counseling. I am going to counseling, she interrupted again. For myself. I'm rebuilding my life, David. Without you. She ended the call before he could respond, her hands shaking but her mind clear. Across the quad, a young couple sat beneath a tree, completely absorbed in one another. They reminded her of herself and David in the early days. Young in love, believing that love alone was enough. She knew better now. That evening, Amelia Hayes sat at Olivia's kitchen table, surrounded by brochures for counseling programs and life coaching certifications. Her laptop displayed flight details for her upcoming interview at Berkeley. And beside it lay Dean Miller's letter of recommendation. You know, Olivia said, pouring them each a glass of wine. When you showed up here 2 weeks ago, I was afraid you'd fall apart. But you didn't. You're not breaking, Amelia. You're transforming. Amelia smiled, thinking of the caterpillar diagrams she used to show her students during lessons on metamorphosis. Breaking had never been an option. She had spent too many years teaching others about resilience to give up on herself now. Her phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. Amelia, can we meet? There are things you need to know. It was from Chloe. Amelia stared at the message, feeling an unexpected calm. 2 weeks ago, such a message would have sent her spiraling. Now, it simply felt like another necessary step. What are you going to do? Olivia asked, reading the message over her shoulder. I'm going to meet with her, Amelia said, her voice sure. Not for closure. I don't need that anymore. But for understanding. Maybe it'll help me help others someday. Later that night, as she prepared for bed, Amelia caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back at her wasn't the same one who had fled her marriage 2 weeks ago. This woman stood taller. Her eyes were clearer. She seemed stronger. She was no longer David Carter's betrayed wife. She was Amelia Hayes, choosing her own path. She opened her journal, a new habit she'd picked up since leaving, and began to write. Today I chose myself. Tomorrow I'll choose myself again. And someday I'll teach others how to do the same. The confirmation email from Berkeley sat in her inbox, a beacon pointing towards sunshine, new possibilities, and 3,000 miles of distance from the life she once thought she wanted. It wasn't the path she had planned, but maybe that was the point. Sometimes the most beautiful journeys began with a broken compass and a brave heart. Tomorrow she would meet with Chloe. Tomorrow she would face another fragment of her past. But tonight, in this borrowed room that was starting to feel like a cocoon, Amelia allowed herself to dream of the future. Not a future defined by loss, but one lit by discovery, strength she didn't know she had, purpose she'd never imagined, and the first tentative steps toward becoming the woman she was meant to be. Outside, the Seattle night hummed with movement. But in this quiet moment, Amelia felt perfectly still, perfectly centered. The pain hadn't disappeared. It might never fully go away. But it had changed into something else, motivation, determination, purpose. She was no longer running away from her broken marriage. She was running towards something new, something wholly her own. The coffee shop Chloe had chosen sat in neutral territory, a small cafe in Tacoma, far from both the university and David's office. Amelia arrived 15 minutes early, choosing a table in the corner with a clear view of the door. Her hands wrapped around a cup of green tea, seeking its warmth. Despite the mild October morning, Amelia Hayes had imagined this moment countless times over the past 2 weeks, the confrontation with the woman who had helped destroy her marriage. In her darkest thoughts, she pictured herself yelling, throwing something, making a scene. But now, as she watched Chloe Vance push through the cafe door, she felt oddly detached, like she was watching someone else's story unfold. Chloe looked smaller than Amelia remembered. The confidence that had always irritated her at company functions had evaporated. Designer clothes and flawless makeup couldn't hide the dark circles under her eyes or the anxious way she clutched her purse. She ordered at the counter before making her way towards Amelia's table, heels clicking softly against the hardwood floor. "Thank you for meeting me," Chloe said, sliding into the chair across from her. Her voice was barely above a whisper. "I almost didn't come," Amelia replied honestly. "But I think we both need this." Chloe hesitated, looking down into her coffee. "I wasn't sure if you'd show up," she admitted. "Not after what happened last week." Amelia raised an eyebrow. "What happened?" "Your name came up at the office. One of the old partners. He made a joke about your divorce, about how quick you were to move on. And I didn't defend you." Amelia blinked, taken aback. "You didn't." "I froze," Chloe said, ashamed. "I just sat there, let them mock the woman he broke. And it's haunted me since." Amelia's jaw clenched, the sting of betrayal cutting deeper. Not because she expected anything from Chloe, but because it reminded her how easily people turned a blind eye when standing up meant discomfort. Chloe nodded, her fingers tracing the rim of her coffee cup. I left him, she blurted suddenly. Last week. I thought you should know. The words hung between them. Amelia studied Chloe's face, searching for some hidden manipulation, but all she saw was exhaustion and what looked like genuine remorse. Why? Amelia asked, surprising herself with the question. Why tell me? Chloe's eyes filled with tears. Because I owe you the truth, all of it. And because I need to understand it myself. She took a shaky breath. When I first started working for David, I was fresh out of business school. I was desperate to prove myself. He was magnetic, successful. He made me feel special, chosen. He has that effect on people, Amelia said dryly. I told myself it was just friendship at first. But late nights at the office turned into drinks. Drinks turned into dinners. And suddenly, Chloe wiped at her eyes. I knew he was married. I knew about you. But he made it sound like your marriage was already over. Just a name. He said you were distant, focused only on your career. Amelia's grip tightened around her teacup. We were trying to start a family, she said quietly. For 2 years, we went through fertility treatments, failed attempts, heartbreak. I threw myself into work because I couldn't bear the disappointment. And while I was drowning in that pain, he was with you. Chloe's face crumpled. I didn't know. He never told me that. She reached into her purse and pulled out a stack of papers. After you left, David changed. He became possessive, controlling. I started going through his emails, his messages. I found things, patterns. She met Amelia's eyes. I wasn't the first. There were others before me. The revelation should have devastated her. But Amelia Hayes felt only a deep, soul-level weariness. How many? She asked. 3, Chloe replied quietly. That I could confirm. All assistants or junior execs. Each relationship lasted about 2 years before he moved on. She pushed the papers across the table. Emails, hotel receipts, photos. He has a type, Chloe continued. Young, ambitious women who look up to him. He builds them up, makes them dependent on his approval, and then he finds someone new. And then he finds someone new, Amelia finished, her voice flat. The pattern was unmistakable now, laid bare in black and white before her. Why did you leave? Amelia asked. Chloe let out a hollow laugh. Because I saw my future in those papers. In 2 years, he would have done to me what he did to them. What he did to you. I refused to be another name on that list. She hesitated, then added, and because I saw what it did to you at those company events, watching you smile and be so gracious while I couldn't live with myself anymore. Amelia leaned back in her chair, letting the weight of it all settle over her. All those years, she had blamed herself for the growing distance in their marriage, for not being enough. But now she saw it had never been about her. I have an interview at Berkeley next week, she said suddenly, not quite sure why she was telling Chloe. A fresh start. You should take it, Chloe said firmly. Get as far away from here as possible. Build something new. She stood, gathering her things. I'm leaving too. Got a job offer back east. I think we both need to figure out who we are without David Carter pulling the strings. Before leaving, Chloe placed one final document on the table. This is my formal statement for your divorce lawyer. Everything I told you and more. Use it however you need. She paused. I'm sorry, Amelia. Not just for the affair, but for not being brave enough to tell you sooner. After Chloe left, Amelia remained at the table, flipping through the documents. Each page revealed another layer of David's deception, a new facet of the man she thought she knew. The man she had loved never really existed. He was a carefully constructed illusion, crafted to lure and control women who wanted to believe in fairy tales. Her phone buzzed. An email from Berkeley. Interview confirmed. Flight details, campus photos, sun-drenched buildings, and palm-lined walkways promised something she hadn't realized she needed so badly. Distance, perspective, renewal. That evening, Amelia sat in Olivia's living room, sharing everything she had learned. Her friend listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each revelation. I always thought something was off about him, Olivia said finally. The way he'd flirt with other women at parties, then gaslight you when you noticed. God, Amelia, I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner. We see what we want to see, Amelia replied, surprised by the calm in her voice. I chose to see the man I wanted him to be. I thought he was someone he wasn't, Amelia Hayes said softly. She pulled out her laptop and opened the psychology program application she had been working on. You know what's strange? Learning all this, it doesn't hurt the way I thought it would. It feels like validation. Like finally having proof that I wasn't crazy, that my instincts were right all along. Olivia watched as Amelia began typing into the form with renewed purpose. You're going to help a lot of people, she said. All this pain, all this betrayal, you're going to turn it into something meaningful. That's the plan, Amelia replied, thinking of all the women David had left in his wake. Herself, Chloe, and the others she'd never even met. Someone needs to help people recognize these patterns before they tear their lives apart. Someone needs to teach them that love shouldn't require losing yourself. Later that night, Amelia wrote in her journal, "Today I met the other woman, and instead of an enemy, I found another survivor. We're all just trying to find our way through the dark, believing in loves that turn out to be mirages. But maybe that's the point, to learn how to be our own light." That night, she booked her flight to Berkeley. Not just for the interview, but for the promise of something more. A new chapter, one written entirely in her own hand. The past few weeks had shown her that endings weren't always as final as they seemed. Sometimes they were just doorways disguised as disasters, leading exactly where you needed to go. As she packed her interview outfit, Amelia caught her reflection in Olivia's full-length mirror. The woman looking back stood taller, smiled more freely, breathed more easily. She was no longer David Carter's wife, no longer Chloe's unknowing rival, no longer the shattered woman who had fled her home 3 weeks earlier. She was simply Amelia Hayes, finally becoming herself. The Berkeley campus stretched out before her, a maze of historic buildings and towering eucalyptus trees drenched in golden California sunlight. Her interview wasn't for another hour, but she had arrived early, wanting to feel the rhythm of what might soon be her new home. Students lounged on the grass, their voices creating a soft melody of different languages and accents. Everything here felt lighter, more possible. "Professor Hayes," a voice called from behind her. "I thought that was you." Amelia turned to see Dr. Evelyn Reed, the department chair, approaching with a warm smile. She looked younger than Amelia had expected, mid-40s maybe, with an energy that radiated equal parts confidence and kindness. "I was just taking in the campus," Amelia explained, suddenly self-conscious about being caught wandering. "Best way to know if a place feels right," Dr. Reed agreed. "Why don't we start the interview early? Over coffee? Those formal office meetings can feel so stuffy." They found a quiet cafe on the edge of campus where Dr. Reed ordered for both of them. "The lavender latte here will change your life," she promised. As they settled into a corner table, Amelia noticed how different this already felt from academic interviews she'd experienced back east, where polished surfaces and stiff conversation often masked deeply entrenched hierarchies. "So, Dr. Reed began, tell me why you're really here, Amelia." Her tone was kind but direct. "Your CV is impressive. Your recommendations are glowing. But something tells me this isn't just about a job change." The question caught Amelia off guard. In Seattle, such personal inquiries would have been considered out of bounds. But something about Dr. Reed's genuine curiosity made her want to be honest. "I'm reinventing myself," she said. "Professionally and personally. I've been looking into counseling programs, specifically those focused on helping women recover from emotional trauma and betrayal." Dr. Reed's eyes lit up. "Now, that's interesting. We've been discussing a cross-disciplinary program between psychology and women's studies. Have you considered pursuing a counseling certification while teaching?" "I hadn't thought that was possible," Amelia admitted. "Welcome to Berkeley," Dr. Reed said with a laugh. "We believe in breaking down academic barriers." She pulled out her tablet and quickly scrolled through her emails. Dr. Isabella Rossi in the psychology department is launching a research project on resilience in women following relationship trauma. She's looking for collaborators with real-world experience. The possibilities began unfolding in Amelia's mind. "You mean I could teach while studying and contribute to research?" "Even better," Dr. Reed said. "We could build your teaching schedule around evening counseling classes. Within 2 years, you could have both your certification and published research." She paused, watching Amelia's reaction. "Unless," she said carefully, "you're not ready for that level of commitment?" Amelia shook her head, her voice clear and sure. "Actually, I think that's exactly what I need." But as she walked out of the building later, alone and notebook in hand, the emotional weight of it all settled on her shoulders. The idea of this fresh start, once exhilarating, now felt immense. And the truth was, she hadn't told Dr. Reed everything, not about the financial war brewing behind the scenes. Earlier that morning, she'd received a terse voicemail from David's lawyer threatening to freeze their joint accounts pending the final divorce ruling. It wasn't unexpected, but it was enough to make her stomach twist. Every step forward, it seemed, came with a drag of resistance behind her. The formal interview that followed felt more like a brainstorming session. Dr. Reed introduced Amelia to other faculty, including Dr. Rossi, a brilliant psychologist whose passion for trauma recovery matched Amelia's own emerging vision. By the end of the afternoon, Amelia didn't just have a job offer, she had a complete academic and professional development path laid out before her. As she walked back to her hotel, her head swam with excitement. The California sun was setting, casting warm shades of pink and gold across the sky, colors she'd never seen in Seattle. Her phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. How did it go? Amelia stared at the message for a moment, then typed back, "It was like finding a door I didn't know I was looking for. They're offering me everything I wanted. And things I hadn't even dared to hope for." "I hear a but coming," Olivia replied. Amelia sighed, sinking onto a bench overlooking the bay. "No but," she wrote. "Just magnitude. This means really leaving everything behind, starting over completely. Isn't that what you want?" "Yes." Amelia paused before typing again. "And that's what scares me. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing something entirely for myself. Not for my parents' expectations, not for a relationship, not to please anyone else. Just for me." "Good," Olivia replied. "It's about damn time." Back in her hotel room, Amelia opened her laptop to find an email from her divorce attorney. David was contesting the division of assets, claiming that her sudden departure constituted abandonment. Attached was a long email he'd sent to the attorney filled with accusations about her mental state and questioning her fitness to make financial decisions. 6 weeks ago, tactics like this would have shattered her. But now, reading David's desperate attempts to maintain control, Amelia Hayes felt only pity. She forwarded Chloe's documentation to her lawyer with a short note. "Use whatever you need." Her phone lit up with another call, this time from an unknown number. She answered, weary but steady. "Amelia Hayes? This is Megan Summers. I found your contact information in some of David's old emails." Amelia's breath caught. "Megan, one of the names from Chloe's documents." "Yes," Megan continued. "Chloe Vance reached out to me, told me you're finally leaving him. I wanted you to know you're not alone. There are 4 of us now, all willing to testify if needed. He won't be able to hurt anyone else." Tears welled in Amelia's eyes, but they weren't from pain. "Thank you," she whispered, "for being brave enough to come forward." After the call, Amelia stood at her hotel window watching the lights of San Francisco shimmer across the bay. The women David had hurt were finding one another, forming an unexpected network of strength. Their shared pain was becoming something powerful: justice, healing, prevention. She opened her journal, something she now did instinctively each night. "Today I saw my future. Not just a new job or a new city, but a new purpose. All those years teaching psychology, I thought I was preparing students for exams. Now I know I was preparing myself to help others find their way out of the dark." Her laptop chimed. An email from Dr. Reed. This one with housing suggestions and an invitation to join other female faculty members for dinner the next time she was in town. The warmth in her words, the effortless inclusion into a community of strong, supportive women made Amelia's decision crystal clear. She began drafting her acceptance email, her fingers flying across the keyboard with conviction. The position at Berkeley wasn't just a job, it was a calling, a chance to turn her pain into purpose, her experience into expertise, her breakdown into a breakthrough. A text flashed on her phone. "The lawyers don't have to handle this. We can work it out. Please come home. David." Amelia smiled sadly, thinking of the woman she had been just weeks ago, the one who might have clung to such a plea. But that woman was gone. She had been replaced by someone stronger, someone clearer, someone who finally understood her worth. Amelia deleted the message without replying and returned to her acceptance email. Outside, the Bay Area fog was beginning to roll in, wrapping the city in its soft, mysterious embrace. But Amelia had never seen her path more clearly. Tomorrow, she would fly back to Seattle to pack up her life and say goodbye to the city that had witnessed her greatest love and deepest betrayal. But tonight, in this quiet hotel room high above the bay, Amelia Hayes was already home. Not in a place, but in herself. She was no longer running from her past. She walked with purpose, every step bringing her closer to the woman she was always meant to become. 6 months had passed, and Berkeley had transformed from a promise into a home. Amelia Hayes's office in the psychology department overlooked a courtyard where students gathered between classes, their voices floating up through her open window on the warm spring breeze. The walls around her were decorated with photos from this new life, hiking in Muir Woods with colleagues, celebrating the holidays with Dr. Reed's family, speaking at her first counseling symposium. That morning, the last box from Seattle had arrived. Olivia had been cleaning out her garage and discovered it tucked away, old photos, cards, remnants of a life that felt increasingly far removed. Amelia had left the box unopened on her desk, choosing instead to focus on preparations for that evening's event. The Women's Center was hosting its first Healing Through Growth workshop, and Amelia was the keynote speaker. Her research with Dr. Isabella Rossi had evolved into a groundbreaking program that merged academic psychology with practical strategies for survivors of emotional trauma. Already, women from across the country were reaching out, sharing their stories, asking for guidance. A knock at the door interrupted her focus. Dr. Rossi stepped inside, her vibrant energy instantly filling the room. "Ready for tonight?" "Almost," Amelia said, gathering her notes. "I didn't expect this many registrations for our first workshop." "Word travels fast in survivor communities," Dr. Rossi said. Then she hesitated. "Speaking of which, security just called. David Carter booked a flight to Oakland this morning." Amelia's hands stilled on her papers. She'd known this day might come. The divorce had been finalized 3 months earlier, thanks in large part to the testimony from his former assistants. David hadn't just lost his marriage, he'd lost his reputation, his career. The last Amelia had heard, he was trying to piece together a new life in Chicago. "He can't get into the workshop without registration," Dr. Rossi added quickly. "Campus security is aware." "It's okay," Amelia said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Maybe it's time we finally talk." The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of final details and quiet anticipation. At 5, Amelia changed into the outfit she had chosen with care, a deep blue dress that made her feel both grounded and powerful. As she applied her makeup, she paused to study her reflection. The woman in the mirror looked nothing like the one who had fled Seattle 6 months ago. This woman's eyes held wisdom instead of pain, strength instead of doubt. The workshop venue was already filling when Amelia Hayes arrived. Women of all ages settled into their seats, some alone, others in pairs there to support each other. Amelia recognized a few faces from her counseling sessions, others from support group meetings. Each woman carried her own story of betrayal, her own journey toward healing. She was reviewing her speaking notes one last time when she felt it, that familiar shift in the air. David stood in the doorway. He looked older, smaller, diminished. Their eyes met across the room, and for a heartbeat, Amelia was transported back to the beginning, back to the hopes and dreams that had once seemed so solid, now turned to dust under the weight of his deception. "Dr. Hayes," one of the event organizers said gently, "we're ready to begin. Should we have security remove him?" Amelia shook her head. "No. Let him stay. Let him see what his actions led to." She stepped onto the stage to warm applause, her notes forgotten as she surveyed the room. These women hadn't come for academic theory. They had come for truth, for hope, for transformation. 6 months ago, she began, "I thought my life was over. My marriage had imploded. My trust was shattered. My sense of self buried beneath the wreckage of someone else's choices." Her eyes found David in the back row. "What I didn't understand then," she continued, "was that endings often arrive disguised as beginnings." For the next hour, Amelia shared her story, not just the pain of betrayal, but the power of recovery. She spoke about the network of women who had stepped out of David's past, how they had turned shared trauma into solidarity. She described the research she and Dr. Rossi were conducting, the patterns they had identified in emotional manipulation, and the strategies they had developed for healing. "The greatest betrayal," she concluded, "is not the act itself, but the way it makes us doubt our worth, our instincts, our right to happiness. Reclaiming that is the real victory." During the interactive session that followed, Amelia moved among the attendees, listening, guiding, connecting. She caught occasional glimpses of David throughout the evening, watching, listening. The anger she had once felt toward him had softened into something else. Not forgiveness, exactly, understanding. He was just another broken person trying to fill his emptiness by breaking others. As the event wound down, he approached her. Security tensed, but Amelia quietly waved them off. Up close, the toll the past months had taken on him was unmistakable, the gray in his hair, the lines around his eyes. "You look well," he said softly. "Happy?" "I am happy," Amelia replied. "Not despite what happened, but because of how I chose to grow from it." "I've been in therapy," he said after a pause. "Trying to understand why I hurt the people I claimed to love." "And what have you learned?" "That I never really knew how to love. Not you, not Chloe, not anyone. I only knew how to possess, how to control." He hesitated, then added, "Watching you tonight, seeing what you've built from the ruins I created." "I'm sorry, Amelia. Truly sorry." "I know," she said gently. "And I believe you. But this isn't about you anymore, David. It hasn't been for a long time." She turned to gather her things, then paused, remembering the last unopened box from Seattle. She opened it quickly and pulled out their wedding album, handing it to him. "I think you should have this. I don't need it anymore." He accepted it with trembling hands. "Are you happy here? Really?" Amelia looked around the room at the women sharing their stories, at Dr. Rossi already discussing future workshops, at the life she had built from the ashes of her old one. "I'm more than happy," she said. "I'm myself." After he left, Amelia returned to her office to gather her thoughts. The campus had quieted, but the lights in the windows across the quad still glowed. Other lives, other stories, other journeys unfolding in the dark. She opened her journal, the same one she'd started the day she left Seattle, and wrote, "Today I faced my past without flinching. Today I stood in my truth and watched it light the way for others. Today I realized that some breaks are clean. Not because they don't hurt, but because they heal into something stronger than before." Her phone buzzed. A message from Olivia: "Heard your workshop was a success. Proud of you, warrior." Amelia smiled, remembering that day in the coffee shop parking lot when Olivia first called her that. She hadn't felt like a warrior then, just a woman running from pain. But sometimes running away is really running towards something better, something true, something entirely your own. The California night spread out before her like a tapestry of lights and possibility. Somewhere out there, women from her workshop were heading home, carrying with them seeds of healing and hope. Somewhere in the darkness, other women were gathering the courage to leave their own broken relationships, to choose themselves, to begin again. And here, in this office that had become her sanctuary, Amelia Hayes was exactly where she needed to be. Not at the end of her story, but in the heart of a much larger one, a story about breaking and rebuilding, about turning pain into purpose, about the strength that lives in every woman who dares to write her own ending. She gathered her things, ready to head home. Tomorrow would bring new students, new clients, new chapters in her ongoing research. But tonight, she would celebrate. Not just a successful workshop or the final closure with David, but the woman she had become, a woman who had learned that the greatest love story isn't found in romance, but in the quiet, powerful act of choosing yourself again and again, until it becomes not just a choice, but a celebration. Dear friend, sometimes life doesn't fall apart all at once. It shifts quietly. A glance, a message, a realization, and suddenly you're standing at a crossroads. Just like Amelia, you can either stay in the comfort of what you've always known or take that terrifying, beautiful leap into something new. The Stoics remind us that we don't get to choose what happens to us, but we do get to choose what we do with it. And Amelia, she chose to rise. Maybe you're facing something right now. Maybe you've been carrying questions in your chest, wondering if it's too late to start over, too hard to begin again. If that's you, please hear this: you are not stuck. You are not broken. You are becoming. And every single step you take, no matter how small, is shaping the story you get to live. If this story touched you, please give it a like, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. You're not just a viewer here, you're part of a growing, healing community. We're in this together.